My name is Ajuan Mance. I live in Oakland, California. I'm a professor of English and Ethnic Studies at Mills College. I'm also a lifelong artist and writer, and I create comics, I do illustration, and I create fine art pieces. I think it's really important to represent the diversity within our larger community, but particularly the diversity within Blackness. For so long, representations of African Americans have mostly been created by other people who have an interest in portraying one specific and very narrow vision of what it is to be Black, and that's not how I experience African American community. So I really want to feature those folks who don't get a lot of press, so to speak. Elders, queer folks, trans folks, and African American men who aren't athletes. Now, in developing my style, my aesthetic of portraiture in particular, I was inspired by a couple of things. One is street artists. I love in graffiti, but also in the kind of street art that goes up on wheat paste. I love the simplicity of color. I love the heavy black lines. And then in terms of color, I love color. And stained glass windows are really interesting to me in that they will do something that is essentially monochrome, but they'll do it with panels of different shades of the same color. So those have been my two biggest influences, I think. Because I'm an English professor and do a lot of close reading and analysis and think a lot about symbolism, I love incorporating symbols into my work. My main symbol is kind of my art logo, which is an Afro-Pic barcode. I knew I wanted to do a barcode that was readable. And so I can change the message in the barcode for those who actually have a barcode reader. But also the Afro-Pic with a barcode as the tines was a way to me, of thinking about the notion of the commodification of Blackness. But in some ways, the notion that Blackness is sold to us, but I'm kind of taking it back in some ways. But I also love using Adinkra symbols. Many of us who are African American have West African ancestry, and so the Adinkra symbols from West Africa, of Sankofa in particular, the notion of going back and getting your history, go back and get it. Both the one that kind of looks like a bird looking over its shoulder, and the heart symbol. As a historian, literary historian, and an artist, that really speaks to me. I wanted to do something in relation to the movement that's taking place. And in the past, I've done portraits of people who have been killed by the police or by vigilante violence. But a lot of wonderful art has been done around that. And so I thought, well, you know, is it possible to draw the various things that are really innocuous activities, and to represent those, to kind of highlight the lack of space there is for simply being a Black person in the world. And so I was going to initially do 21 drawings as part of a large piece. So each section was a piece of a larger piece that will go up at the African American Art and Culture Complex. But now there are so many more things for which people are being detained or arrested or harassed that unfortunately the series can go beyond 21 drawings. As I've created comics and shown work in a broader range of places, I've begun to think more about people who are not me and what will these people get from what the messaging. And so what I really would like a broad audience to enjoy the work, people who understand or want to understand the value of a really diverse, rich community. I think that's really the target audience. You don't have to know or understand the experience of being Black, but be open to understanding the value of Black lives. I, I love being in the Bay Area. It's, I think, a wonderful place to live. And it's the diversity in a really unexpected way. There's never a place I go where there aren't many different people of color Black community includes African immigrants, as well as African American folks. It's just a wonderful place, and it feels very welcoming as an artist. There are some amazing galleries here and amazing museums, but you can also get a foot in the door as someone who may not have gone to art school or someone who doesn't have a lot of connections, and that, I think, makes this a really special place. I think art is really important to Oakland. There's a narrative that exists about Oakland. It's not mostly created by the people of Oakland. And so art is our time to tell, not necessarily to tell the world who we are, but to express ourselves from within, to say what Oakland means to us, to affirm and reflect ourselves to each other. I think it really matters. That in a time when so much seems to be uncertain, in some ways we're living like people lived probably for the previous 10,000 years with a lot less illusions about the certainty of things. It's always been kind of an illusion. But let art be that beacon of hope and optimism. In art, as we create, there's something inherent in the act of creation that is almost inherently optimistic and inherently futuristic as we're creating work that will be seen after it's created. And so keep making stuff, keep looking at stuff, and immerse yourself in art.